Good day, and welcome to the Spotlight live from Washington, D.C. I am really not even going to engage in any monologue today. I want us to hit directly into our focus today, which is the swearing in of the 92 or 93-year old president in Cameroon, and what are the options for the opposition candidate Issa Chiruma Bakari. So I have with me today veteran journalist and Pan-African geostrategist Larry Ayon. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
And and
Okay, is my microphone on?
no, put it on.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I am happy to be here and I'm extending my greetings to the other members of the panel.
And remotely we have the general Chenu of BAS. Chenu, welcome.
Thank you. Welcome, my dear.
Also, we have with us Professor Lilian Atanga, the chairperson of CDN. Prof, welcome.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon.
Um, I think for Cameroonians across the globe, today is a sombering day, given what has just transpired in the glass house, whatever they call it, the National Assembly of Cameroon, the swearing in of President Paul Biya on his 8 or 9 mandate. I think the question that I have for you, the panelists, what is it that Cameroonians can do differently, given that it is deja vu all over, that the circle or the whole process has gone full circle? Is the electoral process today a closure that Cameroon is going to go for the next 7 years would be at the helm of Supreme Magistracy? I'm going to begin with you, my senior brother, the veteran journalist who has more information about some of the complex and meandering situation in Cameroon. He also doubles as the Pan-African geostrategist and is the author of 4 books. One just currently came out, The Afro. I think he would have the chance towards the end to give us at least a preamble of that book. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. The old order changeth, giving place to new, lest one good old culture will corrupt the world. What is happening in Cameroon is one good old culture corrupting the world, corrupting the country, and depriving the people of their right, their sovereign right to lead and to share in the wealth of that country. A cabal, a tribal cabal of Bia, his wife, and her paramour, Ngongo, have been ruling the country since they seized power from the legitimate president who won the election in 2018, my professor, Maurice Kamto. And this is the condition under which Chantal came back to Cameroon. He made it clear to Mr. Biya, if you don't allow me rule, I will live in Europe. And Biya, who is non-compos mentis, said, okay, Chantal, do whatever you like, but just stay with one man.
Professor Lillian, let me bring you in here. Should Tchiroma be sworn in? There are calls from several quarters that there should be a swearing-in ceremony for what some may call President-elect Issa Chiruma Bakari. Should he also be sworn in? And how can this be done?
Thank you very much for your question. I have, for the past few hours, not followed up news yet, and I don't know if he's been sworn in or not. However, he is sworn in, which I think he should be sworn in. It's not necessarily to rule as the president of Cameroon, but is to discredit the elections. It's a strategic move to tell Cameroonians, to tell the Cameroonian government, and tell the world that the elections were rigged. And even the protestations that Cameroonians are having on the street, they are fully aware that they cannot change the situation in place. Reason being that they do not have any legal instruments to have a government work because they will not have access to any governmental offices. However, there is a question of legality and a question of legitimacy. All of these are mechanisms to say that the government of Cameroon is not legitimate, even if it is legal. Other governments may endorse Biya as the current president of Cameroon, but Cameroonians have rejected him. And it will push the government of Cameroon to maybe engage in other legal instruments to improve the governance system and also probably push them to have electoral reforms which may impact the elections that are coming up maybe in February. I don't know. However, with the upcoming elections, I don't see anything changing. Cameroonians are really despondent, but they are not sitting quiet.
But just to follow up or to dovetail with what you have articulated, wouldn't that just be elitist to say, okay, he might be the legal president but lacks the legitimacy? How many of the people in my village will really understand the difference between legality and legitimacy?
Um, the fact that the people are suffering and keep denying. Remember that. Let's take regional elections and senatorial elections. These people are voted into office by councillors. These councillors are grassroots. They are in little cells and they are known. The people in the village can begin to question their councillors that what have you brought for us? Since you became councillor, this man is still there. You keep voting him. It may be a strategy to reject, delegitimate that councillor who legitimates the government of Cameroon. Excuse me. So if this councillor gets rejected by the people, it may actually affect the outcome of municipal elections and eventually the outcome of senatorial elections and other governance instruments in Cameroon. However, knowing that this government has failed people over and over again, unseats the government. They don't care, no doubt. However, they are also aware that their acceptance level compared to 10 years ago, 15 years ago has changed.
But Larry, let me, Chenu, before I come to you, Larry, the rubber has definitely met the road here. What is the point of even going for the elections? Because if we are still talking about elections, we are legitimizing the entire process in Cameroon.
Yes, Professor Lillian, greetings. Let me disagree with the Honorable Professor. The person who has the legitimacy is the people of Cameroon, and they have voted for Issa Tchiroma. That is why I told everybody who wanted to listen in the Washington, D.C. area, I talked to Anise Ekani and to Jukam Chemeni, who is my classmate in the university, that Issa Tchiroma should take a LISCOM and 10 judges from the 10 provinces and sit in a little room and get himself installed as a president and dismiss the Constitutional Council on the factual grounds that after the election of the people, which revealed through the technology which made it available to the people instantaneously that Issa Tchiroma had won, the government engaged itself in a criminal enterprise by turning the whole civil service to cook the books and change the verdict of the people. That already was criminal. And Issa Tchiroma, as the elected president of the people, had a right in international law to install himself through the judges, and in the report that will be made, it will be very clear that there are ocular witnesses who have testified that all they did was to try to change the verdict of the people. So right now, Tchiroma, although he's late by my estimation, because timing is important in everything, should install himself as president in Garua and make it clear to the civil service, those who are owing allegiance to Paul Biya are violating the legitimacy of the people, and the people should go after them. They should go after them personally at every level and make sure that this regime goes down. Because let me tell you the advantage that Tchiroma has. He understands as an incumbent that it is Ngongo who has been ruling the country since they stole the election from Kamto in 2018. Paul Biya is non-compos mentis. He is cognitively impaired. And they lead him into rooms and they say, Monsieur le Président, il faut soulever la main. Il faut dire, I so do swear. Et c'est ça qu'il fait. On lui donne un discours. Il lit le discours. Il ne dirige pas le pays. Les ministres du BIA savent que c'est Ngongo qui dirige le pays. Vous avez vu, pendant les élections, c'est Ngongo qui convoquait tous les chefs pour les distribuer de l'argent. Le Cameroun est géré par Chantal et son amant Ngongo. C'est pas Paul Biya. Les diplomates occidentaux le savent.
General, at the end of the day, the overriding question from most Cameroonians is what is echoing now, mostly on social media platforms, is what echoed in 2018. We've gone full circle and we are back to where we were in 2018 because a lot of the talk that you're hearing in favor of the opposition or what the opposition should do is what Kamto was advised to do. And I think he actually went ahead and proclaimed himself the president. I don't think he moved for that stuff to be installed. So what, per your own observation, what is the difference now?
Merci encore de me donner la parole. Je prends la parole comme ça et c'est très important de comprendre et de faire comprendre à tous les auditeurs que 2018 ou tout au moins 2025 ne sera pas comme 2018. La différence se tient à plusieurs aspects. Premièrement, au niveau de la capacité du président Issa Tchiroma à réunir plus que son Excellence Maurice Kamto en 2018. C'est-à-dire la victoire de Issa Tchiroma en 2025 est une victoire largement écrasante. Et il est ce président-là qui parle au-delà et presque à 8 régions. Il y a peut-être seulement la région du Sud et la région du Centre, entre guillemets, qui sont les régions de Paul Biya, qui semblent être un peu réfractaires. Mais 8 régions obéissent aux ordres du président élu Issa Tchiroma, ce qui n'était pas le cas en 2018 avec son excellence Maurice Kamto. 1. 2. En 2025, il faut que Biya comprenne que 2025, ce ne sera jamais 2018. J'entends les auditeurs, les panélistes dire que oui, il faut que le président Issa Tchiroma aille prêter serment. Ce que notre confrère, mon frère Larry le disait tantôt, je suppose complètement cette idée. Au-delà même de prêter serment, il faut qu'il prête serment et qu'il nous accrédite les ambassadeurs en Occident, dans tous les pays d'Occident. Nous allons enlever les ambassadeurs de Biya dans les ambassades qu'il a nommées et mettre ceux que le président élu a désigné et accrédité. Parce qu'il faut qu'on entre dans une phase où ces gens ne peuvent pas être en paix. Parce qu'ils sont, pour eux, le pouvoir, c'est eux. Le pouvoir leur appartient. Ils s'imaginent mal perdre ce pouvoir. Ngongo, avec sa prostituée, est en train de gérer le Cameroun tranquillement. Et l'avantage que le président Issa Tchiroma a, c'est qu'il connaît les rouages du système. Il connaît que Biya est un vieillard qui a perdu, qui est atteint d'amnésie, qui est atteint de maladie mentale. Il est fini. Il pisse, il chie sur lui. Tout le monde le sait. Donc, il faut qu'on passe au-delà de ça, qu'on pousse Ngongo dans ses retranchements. Et c'est ce qu'on essaye de faire. Et c'est ce qu'on attend du président élu. Parce que l'agenda commence à jouer à sa défaveur. Il faut qu'il tienne le taureau par les cornes le plus rapidement possible. C'est très important.
Oh, Larry, okay.
Let me dovetail. General Cheno is on point. He is really on point. Because General Cheno understands the process. I think General Cheno, when I was a student in 1992, when I was the chairman of I was the president of the SNC working with the chairman. Issa Tchiroma had come from jail and he was emaciated. He was telling the story to all the leaders of the Union for Change how General Pierre Semenge was urinating in his mouth in the jail in Yoko, and all of us were appalled. So this is the situation. Tchiroma is not just somebody who just came out from the blues. Tchiroma has gone through the doldrums of being in the jails of Cameroon for 7 years. That is a soul searching experience. And General Cheno is on point. Power is a blood sport. Take it by force and by fire, as we say. Do not allow Ngongo to continue gallivanting around as if he's ruling. Appoint ambassadors, appoint a cabinet. That is how you're going to win power. And that is when the loyalty of the generals will be tested. Now, let me tell you something. This is what happened exactly in 2011 when Nicolas Sarkozy decided to remove Laurent Gbagbo and put Alassane Ouattara. It's exactly what happened. Appointed ambassadors, the United States ambassador and the French ambassador went and sat in the Hotel Gulf and declared that Alassane Ouattara is a legitimate president. Alassane Ouattara went abroad traveling. The World Bank and the IMF refused to give loans to Gbagbo.
But that is different. If I see the U.S. Embassy this morning put out a congratulatory message towards Paul Biya.
Yes, let me answer that. You'll be shocked if I told you that Western countries do not want democracy in Africa. Western countries want stability. The strategic interest of the United States in that region is the Chad Cameroon pipeline that they want secure.
And the Gulf of Guinea, as far as energy is concerned.
You're right. The whole bite of Biafra, the oil in the Congo, Brazzaville, in Nigeria, in Equatorial Guinea, in Cameroon, is a strategic asset in the United States.
I get it.
So they don't care who rules there. As Johnson said about Mobutu, if he is a dictator, the important thing is that he is our dictator.
Prof, let me bring you back in here. I mean, hypothetically, I am assuming that a lot of what people are clamoring now, it is obvious to everyone who has been a keen observer of the political space in Cameroon to understand that it is practically impossible to dislodge that regime with all of these fanciful ideas that, okay, maybe we would appoint ambassadors and stuff like that. If force is not brought to bear in that regime, it will be difficult for it to collapse because, like what the veteran journalist is saying, the West is about their interests. It doesn't matter who is there, so long as they can mine whatever they have to mine from that particular country or region. So, are we at the verge of an outbreak of an all-out war in Cameroon? Because essentially, what people are asking Tchiroma to do is to declare war.
When the general spoke, that's what came to my mind. The proposals he makes are very lofty. How do you engage in appointing ambassadors to different embassies if you do not have the financial resources to carry out such an endeavor? Even if you appoint an embassy to, say, the embassy in Washington, D.C., how does that ambassador access that space? So it will require two kinds of forces. Either the people invade the embassies, like physically, massively, and occupy that space and push out whoever is there. I don't see it happening. Or a military force and an outright war coup d'etat on Paul Biya. Again, those are resources. The Ambazonians, they tried it. They've tried to have a presidency and they've tried the war, and the financial blockade was what stopped them or is stopping them from attaining the final goals. Tchiroma has the same predicament that Sisiku Ayuktabe had, which is one, how do you mobilize people? To have a people army, which is non-violent, but people violent in terms of what's on their body, or how do you have a military army which requires arms, and I don't see them having the finances to do that. Those are the only two ways that Biya can be dislodged. And for me, it's just going to be another long war, just like the Ambazonian War, and Cameroon is going to have 3 presidents. Like Larry said, international governments want stability. They just want their interest. We see what Senator Rich wrote the other day about a corrupt government. We see what the Department of State wrote today congratulating Biya. What we do is look for ways that discredit the system. For example, investigate corruption and hold international bodies to hold the government to ransom, squeeze the government to a point that they find it really difficult, squeeze them to the point that they do not have any diplomatic connections with all other countries. I don't know. But to say that just declaring Chiroma is enough is not enough. We need to do more with our bodies and with our kids. We need money.
Yeah, let me answer the honorable professor. Professor Lilian Atanga, you are a traditionalist, and the proposals that you are making fall in traditional democracy. I am a revolutionary. I have seen revolutions. In 1989, when Benigno Aquino landed in Manila and Marcos shot at him and killed him on the tarmac with 300 journalists there, Newsweek declared that the bullet that killed Benigno Aquino also mortally wounded the Marcos regime. Henceforth, it is only bleeding. It's been bleeding. We do not actually have to invade physically the embassies. We need to convince the embassies that the person who is ruling is not legitimate. We did that in Washington, D.C., when the State Department under Hillary Clinton asked the ambassador of Ivory Coast to vacate the location of that embassy. It actually happened. Mrs. Singleton, who is Laurent Gbagbo's stepdaughter, was kicked out from the embassy with the ambassador. And the representatives of Alassane Ouattara were installed. It's a gradual process. They know there's an entente cordiale in Cameroon, that for there to be peace, power has to oscillate between the South and the North. The North has had it at the initial stage when power was seized by the French from André Marie Mbida, the first prime minister of Cameroon, and given to the novice Ahidjo. And when Mitterrand came and did not want Ahidjo and handed over power to the South, there was that understanding that when Biya leaves power, a northerner will take over. That is why this time is completely different. The northerners have the financial resources to actually launch an army in Yaoundé. The generals in Cameroon cannot put up a fight. I can tell you that. It will not take 2 weeks if an army comes from the north down south for the Cameroonian army to disintegrate. I can tell you that.
But it is hard for you to also argue that those same Northerners have been sitting for 36 years, while their
For
political
43 years.
for 36 years,
Okay.
while their political godfather is lying in a roadside grave in Senegal, and they've not done nothing.
Yes, vengeance is a meal that is best savored when it is cold. In politics, people are quiet and strategic. They don't act erratically.
For 36 years.
Yes, when they
I
are
mean,
angry,
even the Israelis were in the wilderness for 40 years. Cameroon is already 43 years in the wilderness. Chenu, let me bring you back in. I don't know whether God is not listening to our own prayers. For 40 years, the Israelis were in the wilderness, and He forgave them. Now we are 43 years and counting, and we don't seem to find any way out. What is actually going on? What should the opposition do at this stage? I mean, a lot of people keep a lot of the talking, like I say, every election cycle, there's this talking back and forth. We've provided all the various strategies that could have dislodged the regime, and nothing seemed to work. The only thing that the Cameroonian people have not done yet is the physical force.
Exact. Merci encore de me poser, de me le mettre dans le débat vraiment avec cette question. Avant de répondre à la question, j'aimerais rapidement venir sur ce que le professeur, notre cher professeur Liliane disait. Elle est en train de toucher le point, mais de manière très intellectuelle. C'est bien ce que tu dis, pasteur Liliane, parce que effectivement, il faut des ressources, il faut de l'argent. Mais ce qu'on doit comprendre par-dessus tout, c'est que ce régime, qui est le régime de Yaoundé, n'entend rien de tout ça. Et on a fait, la crise anglophone était un élément tellement fort que si ces gens étaient un peu humains, juste un tout petit peu humains, ils allaient essayer de mettre les choses à terre pour ramener les gens sur la table et comprendre le problème. Mais ils ont perdu toute humanité. Puis c'est un criminel. Puis c'est un sadique. Puis c'est un homme qu'on doit, je ne sais pas, Comment on peut faire avec lui? Mais c'est la pire tragédie qu'aura connue le Cameroun. C'est l'homme le plus incompétent de la terre. Il est même tellement méchant que même sa propre famille, il n'aime pas. On ne peut pas décrire cet homme ici. C'est un des présidents les plus médiocres de la terre. Tous les dictateurs sur la terre essayent de laisser le pouvoir au moins à leurs enfants. Mais voilà un homme qu'on appelle Biya, qu'un autre homme a pris ta femme, un autre homme a pris ta signature, un autre homme a pris ton compte, ton email, un autre homme a pris tous tes codes bancaires, tes codes de signature, et il dirige le pays. Ton fils est vivant, ton enfant est vivant. Donc voilà un homme tellement méchant qu'il faut comprendre jusqu'où il peut aller. Ce qui se passe avec le président élu Issa Tchiroma, c'est qu'il est en train de perdre le temps, mais on espère encore que ça va, qu'on est sur la bonne voie, qu'il a un timing à lui. Parce que nous, on a compris déjà, avec ce qui se passe. En 92, on a eu un leader qu'on a connu, qui s'est battu pour la libération du Cameroun, ni John Frondier. Il a gagné même les élections en 92. Paul Biya s'est assis encore avec sa clique. Ils ont dit non, c'est les Anglos, ils veulent nous prendre le pouvoir. 2018, quand on vient gagner les élections, c'est les Bamileke, ils veulent nous prendre le pouvoir. 2025, Issa Tchiroma gagne encore les élections. C'est les nordistes, ils veulent nous prendre le pouvoir. Donc le pouvoir, c'est pour vous les boulous. C'est là où j'épouse la théorie de Ngana. Ces gens ont un problème. Et le Cameroun ne peut pas continuer uni tant qu'on ne résout pas ce problème. Donc il vaut mieux qu'on se sépare, il vaut mieux qu'il y a la Centrafrique, il y a le Nigeria, nous tous on va aller au front. On va descendre sur Yaoundé, soit pour diviser, soit pour déloger ces gens par la force. Parce que le seul langage qu'ils comprennent, c'est le langage de la force et de la violence. Parce que c'est ce qu'ils utilisent contre les Camerounais. Et c'est ce que nous allons. Biya a fait le mandat de trop. Biya ne peut pas gérer ce mandat. C'est qu'un de chez nous est mort. C'est que moi je vais mourir. Je ne peux pas, il ne peut pas.
Prof,
Ou
let
je
me
serai
bring you.
ambassadeur du Cameroun. Je serai ambassadeur du Cameroun en Allemagne. C'est-à-dire par force.
Prof, let me bring you back in. I think if you can listen to his frustration, um, the crackdown has begun. Recently, from news reports, Bala and Michel Doki have apparently escaped out of the country. It means the regime is bent on making sure that the remaining opposition voices, the ones that are a little bit credible, are all driven out of the country. So, what exactly should we expect now that he has been sworn in? Let's assume that he has been sworn in and the opposition has limited options. What is it that Biya can do in this, for the time being, to bring down the tensions and the pockets of resistance and the outrage, particularly for those of us in the diaspora?
My brother, the Jacob, Biya cares absolutely about nothing. Whether you kill yourselves, as long as the Unity Palace is not touched, it doesn't really matter. I see this as a war, and I see it being fought on two fronts. The military front for those who have the resources and the means to go that way, and the diplomatic front, as Larry says. We need to keep pushing the narrative. We need to keep discrediting, delegitimating that government. Biya doesn't care. I think anyone who dissents, any dissenting voice will be cracked down at. And we know that the world will stand by and talk of autocracy, dictatorship, corruption, and so on and so forth, but they will do absolutely nothing. The Anglophones have been there for 9 years. I see the whole country, if we all put the pressure that I saw for the past 1 week every day and push it into Yaoundé, then something may happen. But as long as it's in the peripheries of Yaoundé, no one really cares. Those guys have built fortresses for themselves in Yaoundé. That's all they care to protect. They don't care about any other person. And a government that is a civil service government, people are protecting their bread and butter for their families. Who cares? So I don't know. For me, I'm fighting the war on a diplomatic front. I don't have the resources to go on a military front. If I had the resources, I will, but I don't have those resources. But for those who have those resources, I think there is need not to fight in Garwa or Bamenda or Bafusam, but in Yaoundé. As long as it's out of Yaoundé, it's a waste of time.
And it's a waste of time
No.
indeed. Larry,
Yeah.
let me piggyback to you here.
Yeah,
I
let me
think,
just confirm to support what Professor Tanga said. Professor Tanga makes a very, very, very cogent point. The diplomatic and military resources have to be available to those who are fighting. But where I disagree with her is in terms of strategy. Yaoundé has relevancy only if the international community recognizes Yaoundé. The presidency of Cameroon can actually be in Garoua because Garoua is the central point in a very strategic Sahel area because forget about the boundaries inherited from colonialism. My first book was Africa Tear Down the Borders. When you stand in Concha in the north, you can cross a little stream and be in Nigeria. You can cross a little stream and be in Niger. The Fulani tribe, from which I don't call it a tribe, it's an ethnic nation from which Tchiroma comes, is the largest in the whole of West Africa. So what we are facing now is a battle between the Fulanese and the associate tribes and the Bantus in the south who do not even agree with Bia anymore because they too realize that in terms of equity, you have ruled for 43 years. Hand over power. Now, I end with what Bismarck said. If the great problems of the day cannot be solved by parliamentary speeches and debates, they will be solved by blood and iron.
yeah, before you responded to what Prof said, what is it? Because if you say you are a revolutionary, and for those who are here in the diaspora, during the Southern Cameroon crisis, you saw the mobilization as far as protests at the White House, protests in New York, protests at the various embassies globally. Have you asked yourself, if people are this outrage here in the diaspora, why are we not seeing the mass protests in front of some of these Western embassies?
Okay.
Because here in Washington, D.C., with about 15,000 Cameroonians here, or 20,000 at most, a protest was called last week, and there were just about 100 people at the protest.
Let me answer you.
I mean, we have to be serious.
Okay.
We can't sit here in this cozy environment, and then we are telling the people on the ground, oh, you should go down, go and fight, and while people are really not doing anything in the diaspora.
Tabenyan, let me answer you. Let us be realistic. If you spend your time in the United States going to protest, you'll be homeless. You have to live in a house. You have to pay the rent. You have to feed your family.
No, but you can't say that. No, you can't say that. We protested. We protested.
No, that is not the
we
solution.
protested, right? I went to New York. I've been at the State Department. I have been at the Senate. I've been at the White House. And most of the time is during the weekend. For you to sacrifice a day, if that country means anything to the people who are, a lot of these forums, there are hundreds of people in the forums who are outraged. But when you call for a protest to bring pressure to bear, nobody shows up.
Mr. Tabenyan, with all due respect, during that time, your wife, who is a registered nurse, was at work working, and there was some assurance that the rent will be paid, the mortgage will be paid, that the children will be fed. I am telling you, as somebody who's lived in Washington, D.C. for 31 years, I live in Washington, D.C. because of protests. I would have moved to Texas, where housing is cheaper. The problem is not protests. I don't care how many people go to the embassy in Washington, D.C. The power is not in Washington, D.C. The power is down on the ground. It is not in Yaoundé. It is with the people. And that's why I don't think that even as Issa Tchiroma has not been enthroned, has not taken the oath of office, he has lost. No. We still have the advantage. What is the advantage we have? There is disarray and disagreement in the camp in Yaoundé. They know that Ngongo and Chantal are the ones ruling the country, and the majority of the members of government are not happy. They are secretly swearing their allegiance to Issa Tchiroma because
General, this talk that the veteran journalist is giving us here, we've had this talk for several years. I mean, it's for me. I don't want to hear that kind of talk that there is division in Yaoundé, and we had that in the past.
Okay.
All these cliques, we had that. But what I was asking him was, for those who are in the diaspora, like you say, diplomatic pressure in the diaspora, I tried to bring him back that during the Southern Cameroon, at the peak of the Southern Cameroon crisis, there was mass demonstration. The only way that the international community started paying attention was because of the mass demonstration here in Western capitals. We had people calling right even from Japan. So here in Washington, D.C., there are about 20,000 people. A protest was called in here, and just 100 people who showed up. That in itself is so disappointing, and it sends a strong message to even the diplomatic corps here that we don't really think there's a problem. If you have a national veteran tournament here that holds annually, there are about 10,000 Cameroonians who show up. Why is it that the people on the ground are supposed to be angry and the people here in the diaspora who have the means? Because we can't complain that, okay, maybe somebody is living here, my wife is working, that's why I had the chance. No, that is not true. I strongly believe that if we are asking people on the ground to sacrifice, the people here in the diaspora also have a responsibility and a duty to sacrifice even a day for mass protests across the board. Général.
Yes, ce que tu dis est très très pertinent. Et mon frère Larry aussi, peut-être il voulait le dire autrement, parce que je crois que s'il a choisi Washington DC comme lieu de résidence, c'est aussi parce qu'il voulait être au cœur de la protestation, au cœur des événements, au cœur de la contestation et des marches républicaines. C'est très pertinent que nous devons sacrifier, nous devons donner quelque chose, parce que nous demandons à ceux qui sont au 237, qui ont en face d'eux une police répressive, qui ont en face d'eux des balles, des gens qui tirent à balles réelles, qui ont en face d'eux des policiers et des militaires brutaux. Nous nous protestons ici étant escortés, étant gardés, étant protégés. Donc le minimum que nous pouvons faire, comme tu te dis vraiment frère, c'est de sortir par milliers, par dizaines de milliers pour montrer, et c'est là où il y aura aussi un impact, ça fait partie du lobbying. Si on voit 10 000 Camerounais sortir pour dénoncer une cause, les gens se disent, ah, mais il y a quel problème? Mais si on voit 100 Camerounais, 200, on se dit, ah, c'est un petit truc, peut-être on ne sait pas, ils ont un petit... Donc c'est toujours, le nombre fait toujours la force. Donc à ce niveau-là, on est d'accord avec toi qu'il faudrait que nous sortions par dizaines de milliers pour pouvoir avoir de l'impact. C'est très important. Donc je suis d'accord, et c'est ce qu'on essayait de faire en Europe, c'est ce qu'on a toujours essayé de faire, sortir par centaines. Et pouvoir faire pression sur les gouvernants qui, ma foi, ne regardent pas, ils ne pas mal que nous, les Occidentaux, entre guillemets, ils regardent dans les relations leurs intérêts, c'est ce qui les intéresse. Ce n'est pas nous qui les intéressons, c'est leurs intérêts. Ce n'est pas le Cameroun qui les intéresse. Ils regardent uniquement leurs intérêts. Donc, nous voulons aussi également dire que les protestations de masse sont très importantes. Je ne sais pas si vous m'écoutez.
Yes, we can hear you. That's fine. We can hear you. We can hear you. You are good.
Ok, ok. Donc, c'est ce que je disais. Donc, c'est ce qu'il faut faire et c'est ce que nous devons faire. Donc, à ce niveau-là, mon frère Larry, on va sacrifier ce qu'on peut, on va donner ce qu'on peut pour accompagner le président élu Issa Tchiroma. Il s'agit ici pour nous de laisser, de passer outre mesure. C'est vrai que ces gens sont tellement méprisants. Le régime de Yaoundé est tellement condescendant. Ils nous regardent avec mépris. Ils nous regardent avec... Parce qu'ils savent, au fond d'eux, qu'on va faire la bouche et après on va se calmer. Ils vont continuer de gérer. Quand ils vont faire bien prêter serment, c'est parce que on se dit que les gens là vont faire après, ils jouent sur l'usure du temps. Après un mois, 2 mois, 3 mois, ils vont regagner leurs occupations et nous, on va continuer. Voilà 7 ans de parti. Moi, je n'aurais jamais imaginé qu'en 2018, Maurice Paul Biya pouvait encore faire même 3 ans avec ce qu'on a engagé comme combat depuis l'Europe en 2018. Sinon, j'ai compris que ce tyran, il faut le détrôner par la force. C'est la
Yep.
violence qui va enlever Biya au pouvoir. Il n'y a rien d'autre. Parce que
Yep.
Biya, dans sa tête, il a été conçu pour mourir au pouvoir. Dans sa tête, il est né pour le pouvoir. Dans sa tête, il va mourir pour le pouvoir. Donc, il faut enlever ça dans sa grosse tête. Il faut arrêter sa grosse tête et enlever ça dedans par force. Ce n'est que le langage qui comprend. Donc, si on ne fait pas ça, c'est pour ça que nous exhortons le président et son excellence Issa Tchiroma à saisir le taureau par les cornes, où qu'il soit, qu'il prenne ses mains rapidement. Il ne s'agit pas de s'arrêter là, mais qu'il nomme son cabinet, qu'il nomme ses ministres, et on va séparer le Cameroun. Les anglophones, il y a eu la crise anglophone, ils ont mené leur mécontentement, ça ne leur a rien dit. On a perdu déjà une partie du Cameroun anglophone. On va perdre tout le Grand Nord. Et comme ça, on va comprendre que Biya va rester président au centre et au sud. C'est ça qu'il faut qu'on en arrive là. La nuit d'hier, les gars sur le terrain ont commencé à creuser à hauteur de 15 mètres. On va séparer l'axe qui coupe Ngaoundéré et l'Est. On va séparer ça. Personne n'entre. Et dès qu'on sépare ça, on s'en termine maintenant à tous les gens que Biya a nommés. Parce que ce sont eux nos ennemis. Gouverneur, préfet, sous-préfet, tous les gens que Biya a nommés, ce sont ces bras longs dans le nord. On va les renvoyer à Yaoundé. Et maintenant, le président Issa Tchiroma va nommer un comité qui va administrer les villes, les provinces du nord, de l'extrême nord et de la Damawa. On va commencer comme ça. Et c'est ça
Okay.
qu'ils vont comprendre. Pas la
And
force. Il faut la force et la violence.
and not to belabor the point, I think we Professor Lydian has an emergency, so we would continue without her. Larry, let me come back to you and to go back to an earlier point that you referenced Cote d'Ivoire. I think that the difference with Cote d'Ivoire now is there was already a civil war in Cote d'Ivoire, and Ouattara had forces loyal to him from the north, right? He had forces loyal to him from the north. It's not a situation in Cameroon where even up to this day we have not seen cracks within the military. There is some rumors that there is certain until we see that, and we are only going to see that if they make themselves uh, obvious for people to understand that this is not going to be like the previous election circles. But until that happens, we are left to believe that they are still within the camp of Biya and his acolytes. So I want us to make the people understand that it is easy for us to do these comparisons with other situations, like when you reference Cote d'Ivoire, but we have to bear in mind that there was already a standing army behind Alassane Ouattara before that election.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Tabenyan. I had the privilege as the spokesman for Maurice, the movement for the restoration of the independence of Southern Cameroons, where Bo Herbert was the boss at the time. He initiated a mission where I went to The Hague. I went to The Hague in the Netherlands, and I was the first to submit a complaint about the Southern Cameroonian issue on behalf of Maurice at the International Criminal Court. I actually met the prosecutor, Fatou Bensouda. There was no army created in Ivory Coast. It was an army created by Nicolas Sarkozy with the assistance of Blaise Compaoré in Burkina Faso to invade the north of the country and put pressure on Laurent Gbagbo because Sarkozy made it very clear that he did not want Laurent Gbagbo because Laurent Gbagbo was too nationalistic. So the issue is an issue of what the French call les interlocuteurs valables, valuable interlocutors. Who are those Africans who are ready to negotiate and work with us and enrich themselves and have all the accoutrements of power while allowing us to rule, while allowing our multinational corporations to exploit the resources of the people? That is the issue. This is a resource war. And I believe if Tchiroma is an organizer of victory, he will organize the armies. And there are so many mercenaries in Boko Haram. You are talking about the fighters in the Anglophone section. Who are the people who are fighting there? There are people paid by Ngongo and Atanganji to attack people and seek ransom and discredit the movement. It is not people who are genuinely fighting for independence.
No, but there is a difference between that, to be very honest with you, that we can lump everybody together and say, okay, maybe every other fighting force in the English speaking region is sponsored by Ngongo and the henchmen of Bia. They had genuine Anglophone self defenders that stood up and said we cannot allow the injustices that have been meted out to our people for this number of years to continue, the killings and all the like. Whether it was orchestrated by Compaore or Sarkozy, there was a military on the ground in the north. And Alassane Ouattara was the face of that military from the north, which I am saying now that should there be, if there is an external force that is going to come in and help Cameroonians,
No.
and say we are going to bring in a military through the north to engage in this battle.
Okay, let me answer that. The North has enough military capabilities to engage the government of Cameroon. I believe they can defeat the Cameroonian army in less than 2 weeks. Why do I believe so? It's not weapons which fight. Now, I know that the Israelis are supporting Gongo with the Pegasus system that allows them to monitor telephone conversations and even encrypted messages. But it is not technology that fights. At the end of the day, America had all the shining technology and went and had its butt kicked in Afghanistan, had its butt kicked in Vietnam. Everywhere they went, they had their butt kicked because the people have conviction. The fire in their belly is what wins. They are ready to make the sacrifice. Ideas are spread when they are watered by the blood of martyrs. People are ready to die for convictions. I believe, I may be mistaken, right now, the Northerners know that it's their turn to take over power, and they are going to take that power by force or by fire.
General, I take exception
Oui,
with this idea. General,
oui, je t'écoute.
okay, I take exception with this idea, even though people want a resolution of the problem in Cameroon, for the Northerners to keep thinking that power is their birthright, that to the point where we are comfortable saying that they are ready to take power and it is theirs, it is their turn. What about the other regions? Do you mean to tell me that people from the west cannot govern Cameroon? People from Littoral cannot govern Cameroon? People from the northwest, people from the southwest regions cannot govern Cameroon, even though the crisis is there now? It is insane for people to begin to feel comfortable with this idea that power belongs to the north.
Ok, je vais répondre à cette question aussi. Je crois que je comprends bien le point de vue de Larry, parce qu'il y a des conventions qui ne sont pas écrites, mais qui ont été, elles ont fonctionné comme ça dans le temps. On a toujours cru qu'après le Sud, ça va aller au Nord. Bon, qui dit Sud ne disait pas forcément le peuple du Sud, du Grand Sud. On voyait dans le Sud les Bamileke, parce que quand on monte vers le Nord, les sudistes, au nord, on nous appelle tous le sud. Qu'on soit anglophone, qu'on soit Bamileke, qu'on soit Douala, qu'on soit Betty, Yaoundé, ils nous appellent tous les sudistes. Donc le pouvoir était soit à quelqu'un du sud, soit à quelqu'un du nord. C'est comme ça que le colonisateur avait fait. Le colon nous avait réparti les choses techniquement comme ça. Donc c'est des conventions qui ne sont certes pas écrites, mais qui ont fonctionné toujours comme ça. C'est pour ça qu'on avait à un moment donné soit le premier ministre était de la région du nord-ouest ou du sud-ouest, et ainsi de suite. Lorsque le président était francophone, il y a des choses qui ne sont pas toujours dites, mais qui existaient comme ça. On prenait ça comme ça. Ça, c'est un. Deux, c'est une idée que Bia a su très bien pervertir. Très bien pervertir parce que, en fait, ce que nous nous demandons, si le pays était bien administré et bien structuré, Un candidat, qu'il vienne du nord, du sud, de l'est, de l'ouest, ou bien de la zone anglophone ou de la zone francophone, ne nous aurait pas gênés. Et parfois, on en veut même à une ethnie, à une tribu qu'on appelle les Bamileke. Mais quand tu regardes même au fond, ce sont ceux qui demandent moins le pouvoir, mais ce sont ceux qui épousent les idées de la réforme, c'est-à-dire là où il y a le changement. Le peuple de l'Ouest en général sont des peuples qui aiment le changement, ils aiment les mutations. Ils ont épousé l'idéologie de John Kennedy dans les années 90 avec corps et âme. Ils ont épousé l'idéologie de Maurice Kamto dans les années 2018, même comme on a dit que c'est parce que c'est leur frère, avec corps et âme. Et ils ont épousé l'idéologie du président Issa Tchiroma avec corps et âme. Juste pourquoi? Parce qu'ils veulent le changement. Donc, pour les régions, c'est que Biya a montré ses limites à tous les niveaux. Chaque région au Cameroun aujourd'hui veut le changement. Que ce soit n'importe qui, on est prêt à embrasser même le président Tchiroma qu'on appelait notre bon diable. Tu vois, les gens sont prêts à embrasser le diable pour refuser Biya. Il faut reconnaître que Biya est pire que le diable. Biya, si Biya arrive en enfer, même Satan a peur de voir Biya en enfer. Parce que si Biya arrive en enfer, il va faire le coup de
Général. Général. Général.
Oui.
You know, not everybody believe in heaven and hell, right, General Chenyu? Maybe God Himself. You want to ask yourself that question: that why is God Himself allowing the Cameroonian people to go through this? Like I pointed out, that the Israelis were for 40 years in the wilderness. We are 43 years in the wilderness. Why is God allowing us to be there?
Why? I answer you. Je vais te répondre simplement. Tu sais, lorsque tu regardes le sillage et l'événement, comment est-ce que l'histoire fonctionne, il y a dans toute situation la part de Dieu et la part de l'homme. Les Camerounais, d'une manière générale, jusqu'aujourd'hui, ont le président qu'ils méritent. C'est-à-dire, nous-mêmes, on a commis beaucoup d'erreurs, beaucoup. C'est-à-dire, on s'est laissé berner par le fléau de la division. On s'est laissé, regarde par exemple simplement, je vais prendre un exemple. À l'approche des élections de 2018, de 2025, lorsqu'on prenait deux candidats seulement, Issa Tchiroma et Bello Bouba, on dit faites juste la coalition pour chasser Biya. C'est-à-dire les gens ne sont pas capables de dépasser leurs égaux. Les gens ne sont pas à mesure de dépasser leurs égaux. Vous croyez qu'ils vont mériter quel type de président? Biya a compris ça. Il a compris comment fonctionne le Cameroun. Et nous sommes, il y a des choses qu'on ne peut pas faire. Il y a des seuils qu'on ne peut pas atteindre. Dieu peut faire un certain nombre de choses. On pourra rester là pendant longtemps, jusqu'à ce que le peuple commence à prendre conscience. Le peuple anglophone a pris conscience. Qu'est-ce que Biya a fait? C'est devenu la cause des anglophones. Le reste du Cameroun s'est séparé. Les francophones ont dit, ah, c'est leur problème. Maintenant, quand c'est devenu le problème des Kamto avec certaines tribus et certains Bamileke, ah, c'est aussi leur problème. Maintenant, le problème de Issa Tchiroma, le gouvernement de Biya veut nous faire croire que c'est le problème des nordistes. C'est comme ça qu'ils font. Et tant qu'on va surfer dans ça, on va toujours avoir Biya et Ngongo comme président. Donc, c'est à nous de dépasser ce clivage. C'est à nous de comprendre qu'il y a la part de Dieu et la part de l'homme dans l'action humaine. Dieu a fait ça en son temps. Il a rendu même Biya comme il a rendu là. Voilà un homme qui est impotent, omnipotent, il ne peut rien faire. Il est certainement l'un des hommes les plus malheureux. Quand vous le regardez, vous croyez qu'il a laissé quel genre d'enfant sur la terre? Quand il regarde lui-même sa propre vie. Quand je le regarde, j'ai pitié de lui. Bien que chef d'État, bien que président qui s'accroche au pouvoir, c'est un homme très malheureux. Voilà une fille qu'il a eue, qu'il a tellement aimée. Il lui a même donné le nom de sa pauvre mère, Eyenga, qu'il aimait tellement. Mais voilà une fille comme ça, regardez comment elle est. Elle est le prototype de tous les enfants échoués sur la terre. Deuxième chose, il a son pauvre garçon, Franck Junior, qui l'aime encore beaucoup. Lui aussi, c'est un autre docteur qui rêve d'être DJ. Voilà la vie d'un homme. Vous voyez qu'un homme à 93 ans, il n'est même pas capable de compter un petit
Général, It looked like you like
Wait,
Brenda. You like Brenda? We can hook you up with Brenda though.
for, for free.
Yeah, General
I
Cheno is
refuse.
General Cheno is so humorous.
Uh, 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 Larry, let me come back to you. I know these are serious times. Um, at the end of the day, the Cameroonian people have to find a way out of this mess. The anger is palpable. You can actually feel the level of tension and disillusionment in the country. But the handful of people in a 2D who have taken over power and held the people hostage. A lot of these things that we say in the confines here in the diaspora, they do not apply with the realities on the ground. Our people are living desolate life. Desperation is the top of the day because we can prescribe all of these solutions so long as they do not change the way our people live on the ground. It is just an exercise in futility.
Yes.
Because at the end of the day, we speak in these glowing terms as if it is some regular society or regular government that we are dealing with these virtuous democratic norms that we think could be applied in that country and they would work. These people are like savages. If Chiruma, even though he has his own issues, I know a lot of people would want to suppress any criticism of Chiruma at this point. But what is happening to him too is poetic justice. Because if this fight has started in 2018 and they held their ground, Biya should have thought otherwise to even contemplate what it's doing right now. But that aside, how do we get these recommendations that a lot of people have suggested out here in the diaspora
Okay.
translated into action?
Okay. Let's start with the Glorious Revolution. When the English people, the Parliament, was dissatisfied with the autocratic rule of King John, 1688, there was the Glorious Revolution. Cromwell overthrew the king, and the charter, the Magna Carta, was enshrined to limit the powers of the king. We had the French Revolution of 1778, 1789, where it ended up with the dictatorship of Napoleon. We had the American Revolution, where people like Samuel Adams and John Hancock in Massachusetts will not accept the garrisoning of British soldiers on the ground. Now, come over to Africa. The people on the ground have rejected the beer dictatorship. 2025, if the government, which is in power in Cameroon, which has control of the resources and the army, does not cede to the will of the people, how do empires disintegrate? How did Marshal Tito lose Yugoslavia and it became 7 different nations? Kosovo, Bosnia Herzegovina, Albania.
Serbia.
How did that happen? How did the Sudan turn into 2 countries? It can happen. Cameroon is an artificial contraption that is held together by violence. My Amber boys say to those who are saying Tchiroma is the incarnation of the people. They said, now which kind banger did it smoke? Tchiroma, who said, no Anglophone has ever been shot by the military. Now, is that Tchiroma who is going to be the incarnation of the population? No. Tchiroma is a stepping stone for the ultimate liberation of Cameroon by the people. And guess what? The people in the north have the military and financial resources to overthrow the government of Yaoundé the way Kagame overthrew the government of Habyarimana that's where we're going.
You cannot blame the people for having reservations about Chiruma as a turncoat politician. He can wake up today, tomorrow, and they tell you they gave him the president of the Senate, and they tell the Waju that you're going to be the next president after Biya, and you'll be surprised that he takes it.
No.
So you cannot blame the people.
Yeah.
It's based on his history.
Yes.
And
No.
there is no denying the fact that Saul can become Paul. But until then, you have to give people a space to say, wait a minute, is this the guy? Or is just his mere utterances? Is it just the moment that we seek? Are we sure that if we get to this point with this guy, this is what is going to happen? Should
Okay.
people be cautious and give people the freedom that, okay, they have to express their reservation?
Yes. You make a very salient point. The reservations that the people must have about Tchiroma on account of his political trajectory. But Tchiroma is, there I agree with Eric here, he's the incarnation of the aspirations of the people. When my friend Jukam Chemini and Anise Kani signed that declaration saying Issa Tchiroma has won the election, it was an affirmation of the will of the people, and it was preemptive. It was intended to make sure that the government does not falsify the records the way they've been doing. And it worked.
How did it work? They
Because-
disregarded the stuff and
No, let me tell you how it worked. The government became so apprehensive and had to jail them. So, in front of the court of public opinion,
the government has preempted that if you took it, you make an announcement like that, they were going to hold you responsible. So it was not as if something that just came out and they went and arrested them. They had already preempted the entire country. That if you're going to make out any declaration before the proclamation of the result, remember Tangaji has done that, warning Baristandoki when Baristandoki said the DISO was going to give live results from the polling station, and he said, don't even try it. If you try it, we're going to go after you. So I don't think that it was just something that came out of the blue and they were in reaction to the declaration. They still dared the people. I think, General,
Yes.
I think a lot of what is happening now is the government for 43 years have actually understood the people of Cameroon, if I can say that, that like you said from the beginning, they always know that give it time and people will go back to their daily routines because of the desperation, people trying to feed their families and stuff like that. So they will quickly forget. But it is hard for us also to deny the fact that the leader is a reflection of the people. I think the Cameroonian people are also complicit with having that type of leadership for 43 years. And so it is now or never for them to take their own responsibility. If they have the stomach to go out and fight for the future of that country. Because I would have hoped that since the declaration of those results, what is the essence of you calling ghost town for people to stay at home? The people should be in the streets. Mass protests across the national territory for the world to see how mad the people are. Because if you sit inside your house, how is the global community going to really know that you are mad? This is what is, for me, the things that are conflicting to the strategy, if at all, Tchiroma had a strategy in place, because right now we're not really seeing any strategy.
No.
Who is actually leading the protests on the ground? What is the strategy after the shutdown? What next? It's really just in a fluid situation.
Merci encore de revenir là-dessus. Moi, je suis d'accord avec toi parce que tu fais une analyse très fluente et fluide sur le process, comment est la suite et comment sont les Camerounais par rapport à leur leader qu'ils méritent. Je pousse ton point de vue sur ce niveau et pour comprendre aussi que lorsque les protestations, par exemple, étaient violentes et que les gens sortaient dans les rues et détruisaient et cassaient tout, il y avait une espèce d'incertitude auprès de ceux qui nous dirigent, qui nous gouvernent, le régime illégitime de Biya, ça faisait plus d'effet. Bon, moi aussi, je n'ai pas compris particulièrement la stratégie du président Issa Tchiroma de renvoyer les gens à la maison et de dire on va faire qu'il monte maintenant. Parce qu'avec les violences dehors, quand les gens sortaient en masse, l'impact était plus ressenti pour moi. Ça, c'est ce que je pense. Je peux me tromper. Ça, c'est ce que je pensais. Mais je voulais dire quelque chose. Au-delà de tout, Au-delà de tout, parlant de ce que tu disais tantôt, je crois que le fait le fait que ce qui arrive à Tchiroma, qui est un des ressortissants du Nord, comme le disait tantôt Larry, un des ressortissants du Nord, arrive comme un couronnement. C'est comme la boucle est bouclée. En fait, tous les grands axes, toutes les grandes régions, tous les grands groupes ethniques que forme le Cameroun ont été victimes de la tyrannie, ont été victimes et ont été condamnés par le régime Biya à comprendre que seuls les Boulous au Cameroun doivent avoir le pouvoir. Je crois que c'est la main divine. Appelons ça Dieu pour ceux qui croient en Dieu, et ceux qui croient, je sais quoi, vont l'appeler ainsi. Ça a touché déjà le peuple anglophone qui parle anglais. Ça a touché le peuple baminéké par Maurice Kamto, par John. Ça a touché par la crise et les revendications anglophones, ça a touché le peuple qui parle de l'obéissance anglophone. Maintenant, ça vient toucher la population du Grand Nord, qui est un grand groupe bien à part, avec Issa Tchiroma Bakari, le président élu. Donc voilà déjà une espèce de vue panoramique sur la situation qui montre que le régime de Yaoundé est un régime qui n'est prêt à partager le pouvoir avec personne. Donc, la nécessité et l'urgence pour les Camerounais de comprendre que nous avons un seul ennemi. Le seul ennemi du développement et du changement au Cameroun, c'est Paul Biya et son clan. C'est le clan de ceux qui nous gouvernent, le clan des Boulous qui ont pris le pouvoir et l'ont confisqué. Voilà notre ennemi commun. Qu'on soit anglophone, qu'on soit bamiléké, qu'on soit nordiste, ou d'où qu'on vienne, on a un ennemi commun, c'est Biya. Et il a montré au cours des 30 dernières décennies qu'il nous met tous dans un même panier. Tant qu'on n'est pas Boulou et qu'on n'appartient pas à son clan, on est le reste du Cameroun. On est le reste du Cameroun et il s'en fout de ce que nous pensons et de ce que nous voulons. C'est pour ça que nous devons mettre nos accords, accorder nos violons pour ensemble mener nos combats. Parce qu'on a identifié l'ennemi. L'ennemi, c'est Biya et son gang, le gang des brigands. On a identifié cet ennemi. Il faut aller contre cet ennemi par tous les moyens. Quitte à diviser même le Cameroun par trois, on est prêt à le diviser. Que Biya reste le président du Sud et du Centre. Il va administrer Bomoka et Bolova et Yaoundé. Il n'y a pas de problème. Il y aura l'État.
And those who want to join him from the other regions can move to the center, right?
Oui, ils peuvent aller là-bas, c'est pas de problème. Il y aura maintenant l'État d'Ambazonie. On est prêt à créer cet État d'Ambazonie avec l'Ouest, le Nord-Ouest, le Sud-Ouest et le littoral. Nous nous rejoignons là-bas, on fait l'État d'Ambazonie. Et puis il y a l'État des bêtises, l'État étant. Le centre, le Sud et l'Est, qui reste là-bas. On verra qui va travailler comme c'est les premiers par.
Oui, le général Tcheno, vous faites une analyse percutante. Et ceux qui ne savent pas croire que c'est une illusion, c'est déjà arrivé au monde. Les gens sont capables de faire une détermination que cette fois-ci, nous ne pouvons pas laisser. Puisque les armes sont maintenant à la portée de tout le monde. Ce n'est pas le gouvernement qui a le monopole de la force encore, comme c'était le cas dans les années 70. Et c'est ça la situation. Les anglophones ont montré qu'ils peuvent commencer avec les robagones et maintenant ils vont avoir les drones. Donc le Cameroun, est, comme une certaine personne avait dit, le Cameroun it's like an active volcano. Cameroon is like a cake of gunpowder. It is very easy for that country to disintegrate. We cannot allow one dictatorship to allow that to happen. Now, the French, with Macron, who can handle his own country, have to take a decision.
I think we have run out of time. General, I would give you 2 minutes for your final thoughts, and then I would come over to the Pan-African geostrategist and veteran journalist to give his closing remarks, and he's going to talk about his new book, The Afro. Chenu, over to you.
Merci. 2 minutes. Je vais dire en 2 minutes ceci simplement. Ma première pensée va d'abord vers le président élu, son Excellence Issa Tchiroma Bakari. Je vais dire, Excellence Issa Tchiroma Bakari, vous m'entendez, vous m'écoutez. Nous sommes là pour vous dire que vous êtes sur le droit chemin, vous êtes sur le bon chemin. Mettez rapidement votre date de prestation de serment. Prêtez serment. Je vous l'ai dit avant l'élection. Nommez-nous un ambassadeur dans votre gouvernement. Pensez à un ministre de la diaspora. Un ministre de la diaspora qui aura pour mission d'accréditer, de nommer les ambassadeurs, d'accréditer les ambassadeurs dans toutes les représentations diplomatiques. C'est tout ce que vous avez à faire. Nous, le bras armé de la révolution, nous allons nous charger de les installer dans les ambassades. C'est notre problème. Nous allons installer tous les ambassadeurs. Ça, c'est un. Et de deux, je vais dire aux truands et aux bandits qu'on appelle Paul Biya, toi qui as étudié, le mandat de 2025, c'est le mandat de trop. Tu as eu toutes les occasions pour sortir par la grande porte, pour sortir normalement. Mais si tu veux, et c'est ce que tu as choisi, tu vas quitter le Cameroun à la manière de Samuel Ndo. Tu vas quitter le Cameroun à la manière de Ceausescu. Donc c'est comme ça que tu finiras. Et sois-en sûr, dès que l'exil est déclaré, quelle que soit la bonté du président, on ne t'enterrera jamais au Cameroun tant que le corps d'Aïdjo n'est pas rentré au Cameroun. C'est ce que j'avais à dire. Merci.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Tabenyan, you introduced me as a geostrategist, which is really what I've done after 43 years as a journalist. The problem of the continent is not electing another president in a little micronation. The problem of the continent, the elephant in the room, is the borders inherited from colonialism. So long as you maintain those borders, you will maintain the Berlin Conference exploitation of the continent. That's why I have written the Afro, the single African currency. The single African currency is the sole guarantee for sovereign independence. We are not going to develop. We are not going to build machine tool factories. We are not going to be able to build magnetic levitation trains from Cape to Cairo, from Dakar to Mombasa, by borrowing from the World Bank and the IMF, or from the Chinese or the Russians or the Europeans. We are going to do that by leveraging our strategic resources, which are in abundance, and making them into a digital currency, and forcing all entities who want to trade with us to pay us in our Afro, our own currency. In the Afro, in 250 pages, I debunk the CFA franc. I debunk the World Bank. I debunk the IMF. I debunk the United Nations. I need people to read that and engage me in a debate. I know this thing very well, and I've confronted all the professors who have been pontificating about alleviating poverty in Africa. They have failed. The strategy is a single currency.
How do we get the book?
The book is going to be launched very soon. It's going to be on Amazon, but you can go to Amazon now and read the precursor to this book, which is called The Case Against the Nation State, Reflection on 40 Years of Journalism. There, I tear the nation state. I ask for the devolution of powers to our 3,000 entities, because, Mr. Tabenyan, the thing that the white man did was that it dispossessed our people of power and gave the power to a potentate who had the impunity to act with he had the immunity to act with impunity. So if I became president of Cameroon like Mobutu, I can kill you. I said, Tabenyan, you are too brilliant. I can kill you, and I'll say I did that in the interest of the nation. That impunity is what has created an environment of corruption, of exploitation that has perpetuated. Because our children have no future in Africa. COVID-19 came. We were begging for vaccines, whereas the people whom our epidemiologists studied in Harvard and Yale and Sorbonne, who even excelled, came to countries, and they were sitting in desks and asking for bribes, while their colleagues in the Western world were designing new vaccines. Okay. So the future for Africa is a single currency.
Thank you. General Chenyu, I'm now going to make the veteran journalist and Joe strategist, the African Joe strategist, president, so that he should not kill me. I don't want him to kill me. So I'm not going to make him president. I don't want him to kill me. He can't be saying that he's trying to kill me. No, 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 no. I'm not going to do that. But
Yes.
I want to thank you all for the serious and deeply reflections on the situation in Cameroon. Things are moving really
You're
fast.
Cheno. Thank you so much.
We
We are the one
are
who thank
we
you.
are hopeful that the gods of that nation are still with that nation. If care is not taken, things are going to completely fall apart. And once the center no longer holds, it's going to be very difficult to put it back together. So on that, I want to thank our technical director, Mr. Jules Olati, and I want to thank all of you, our viewers across the globe. We will definitely be here again, I think tomorrow or Saturday. Thank you and have a good night.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.